Okay, that's 1 o'clock, Waffle Crew fans. My name is Matthew the Sage, and I'm really excited to be here with you today. I am a first-time streamer. I've never done this before, so I am very, very excited to be sharing this with you today. I'm here for a number of reasons, and I'll get into those in a second, but first I want to give a shout-out to my lovely wife, Holly. Ironically, she is also named Holly, because she set me up with this because I am a techno-immigrant, and I have zero tech skills whatsoever when it comes to, okay, pretty much anything. So anyway, I apologize for the bad sound for those of you who are going to watch this as a recording, or for anybody who tunes in right now. The sound isn't great. I don't have a wonderful mic. I will get one, and I'll get myself all techno and situated and all that good stuff. So anyway, I'm excited to be here today with you to talk a little bit about dice camera action, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to start this stream. Give you a little bit of information about me going forward. I'm going to be doing me on this stream. I'm just going to do me here, and hopefully it resonates with some of you. I imagine it will resonate with some of you, probably trigger some of you too also, because I intend to keep it real. So we're going to see how that goes, but I'm excited to connect to the community too, and that's what D&D is all about. So anyway, first things first, I'm going by Matthew the Sage, and I will tell you why. Because everybody has a wheelhouse, right? They have a number of areas that they consider themselves expertise in. And if there was going to be anything that I was going to say that I was an expert in, I would say it would be fantasy adventure and fantasy literature and fantasy, all things fantasy, movies, whether that includes the comic part of fantasy, comic books, or whether that includes D&D, lifelong D&D player, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but that's what I'm the sage of. I have, I've got a master's degree in curriculum and instructional design, and a bachelor's degree in English education, and an ESL certification, and blah, blah, blah. I'm bilingual. I speak Spanish, so bienvenidos a todos los que están hablando español, que quizás estén escuchando a este stream. I have no idea how to say stream. But if I was going to call myself the sage of anything, I would say that it would be sorcery. It would be fantasy, adventure, and all that good stuff. So one of the reasons why I wanted to do this also was because I've watched dice camera action for quite some time, and watched it. And I'll tell you how I watched it too, and maybe I hope it's not going to creep anybody out here, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I listen to dice camera action at night. I listen to it in the car sometimes. I re-listen to it. I recently started re-listening to a lot of the dice camera action episodes, and starting from the beginning, because I wanted to go back to Barovia, which I feel like is one place where dice camera action kind of found its niche and was at its best. And I think that's one of the reasons why Chris Perkins is always taking them back to Barovia. And you've seen their extreme reactions. They're triggered when they go back to Barovia, or when that intro plays or whatnot. And I love that. So anyway. But that being the case, I wanted to jump into the community, give some of my thoughts, and talk. And in the intro to one of his books, Diane Salvatore, the wife of author R.A. Salvatore, the creator of Drizzt Do'Urden, or Drizzt, whatever you want to call him, she, in her foreword to one of his books, said that there's nothing that D&D players love to do more than D&D, but to talk about it. So that's what I want to do. I want to be able to talk about it, and I want to share my thoughts with you, and I want to interact with you and whatnot. And so I'm gonna do my thing here, and hopefully it resonates. And if I'm doing it into the universe here, and it doesn't resonate, that's fine. I'm satisfied. I've never done this before, and it's exciting to me. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, I'm wearing my St. Patrick's Day celebration T-shirt. Happy birthday out there! Happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you people who might be of Irish descent. I'm both Irish and Scottish. We thought we were just Scottish for years, and then we found out through genealogy, lo and behold, oh wait, our Scottish ancestors were all Irish immigrants. So anyway, and please don't adjust the tint or the settings on your camera or your computer. I am a ginger. So we should probably just put that onto the table, and allow me to welcome you to the Waffle Press. Boom. So anyway, don't you love, that's about as high tech as I get there, that prop. I'm going to be looking over at my computer here too. This is my first time doing this. I don't have multiple screens set up. So I will be referring back to a document that I have open. So let's jump in and talk a little bit about that. I love Dungeons & Dragons. Absolutely love it. I've been a huge fan of it my entire life, and since this is going to be largely about the Waffle Crew and Dice Camera action, I will also let you know that I resonated a lot with something Holly Conrad said when she was talking about, her childhood, and things were horrible, or there was smog outside, and she would go escape to Baldur's Gate, and she would escape to Sigil and all of those things. And so that really resonated with me because I did the same thing. When I was younger, I was I was more out of shape than I am now. I've gotten much more active. I run, I lift weights, I do love food. So I balance those two things out as best I can. But I wasn't, I don't know what you would call popular right away very on. And so as a younger child, I found not just escape, but I found creative expression in Dungeons and Dragons and in fantasy literature, in drawing. I have a portfolio of the most craptastic drawings, but they're mine, and I keep them, and I love them the way I know a lot of you do because I see you share them. But anyway, so it's fantastic for me, and I resonated with D&D in that way. It resonated for me, rather. I absolutely loved it, and I loved the creative aspect of it. Tracy Hickman, who's the author of the Dragonlance, he has talked quite a bit and written quite extensively on the subject of fantasy as escapism. And I don't like that because it's so much more than that. Escapism implies that we're unable to forge a healthy reality just because we go wandering in these other worlds. And if you want to know the truth, I think the exact opposite is true. I think that Dungeons and Dragons, despite the bad press of the 70s and the misunderstandings with some religious movements, I think Dungeons and Dragons is not only healthy, but I think it's really good for kids. I'd love to see D&D clubs all over the place, and I know there are people that bring it to schools and bring it to younger kids in communities in different ways, and I think that's fantastic. I think, like anything, it can be taken to the extreme, but I think that it's so much more than that. I think we're all kind of, the divine in us has the desire to create and the desire to expand and to imagine, to create worlds and to do all of these things. And because of that, I think it's not only healthy, I think it's vital to the creative spirit. In fact, I think that kids naturally do this. I mean, we all grow up doing imaginary play, right? Everybody was playing pirate in the backyard, or in my case, I was throwing fireballs, and I loved the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. I remember having an imaginary wizard's duel with Venger that my brother was pretending to be my teacher, and we're throwing fireballs, and I had such a good time. It's such a happy memory, right? But I think it's a natural thing for kids and people to do that. I think that we learn through stigma and through other things to suppress that creative side of us, the imagination side of us, which I think is really natural. I think people generally have the desire to create, to imagine, to pretend. Everybody's doing these host a murder things now, and I think that it's almost as though it's become culturally acceptable now for us to have Dungeons and Dragons and for us to begin to play pretend as adults, when the reality is it was really healthy all along. And I think that, I think it just got suppressed. But this is a great time to be a D&D player. It's a great time to be alive. I remember Chris Perkins said on one of his videos that he foresees a time when there will be Dungeons and Dragons going 24 hours a day. And if you want Dungeons and Dragons to watch it live, that you'll be able to click anytime you want and do it. And it feels like it's almost that way now. It's become so popular. And I like also when the stigma of fantasy or when D&D comes up, I like to frequently say, well, there are more of us than there are of them, right? We have a whole generation of people that grew up playing D&D. So anyway, that gives you a little bit of idea of my passion for Dungeons and Dragons. I am a dungeon master. I dungeon master for my family. I have a dungeon master for a church group that started, actually. I know a lot of people think that those two things can't exist simultaneously. I'm hoping in this stream, among other things, to be able to dispel that. I think Anna Prosser Robinson has done some work already in that regard. I don't think that those two things need to be in opposition to each other and need to compete with each other. So I'll explore that and as I give my perspectives, because I'm a religious person. I love D&D. And anyway, moving on. So let's jump in a little bit now that I've given you, it looks like almost 10 minutes of background and whatnot. and tell you a little bit about why I started the Waffle Press and what I want to do and what I hope that I'll be able to accomplish or to express either way. So to begin, I love the show Dice Camera Action, and I will tell you why I love it, and I'll tell you why I love each of the characters. So first of all, it's Chris Perkins, okay? And he's such an incredible DM. He does accents, he does voices. I'm going to do accents on this, not necessarily because I'm trying to emulate him or because I'm going to do it intentionally, but because I freaking can't help myself. Like, I'm one of those people who was, born on the stage. I do sing. I don't sing professionally or anything like that, and I don't have any aspirations to those things, but it's always been a part of who I am. And so I love this idea of Dice Camera Action and it being kind of like D&D theater for everybody. I do also like Acquisitions Incorporated. Pretty big fan of those. I find that it gets a little coarse for me sometimes, but I do also find it to be hilarious and the acting to be great. I liked Critical Role. That was actually what I started, and I started watching Critical Role. My problem with Critical Role was the number of people that are sitting at the table. And they're all actors, and they're all hams, right? And so they're all talking over each other. And I don't know, and maybe it's evolved. I didn't watch too much past that. I don't know how Matt Mercer does it. He's wonderful, too. I don't know how he balances all of the different people at the table who are competing for a voice, right? And they're actors, and they're natural attention seekers, right? All of those of us who love the stage are natural attention seekers. So I think that just kind of becomes, an instinct. With so many people at the table, I can't hear their individual voices. But Dice Camera Action, I can hear their voices. Not only can I hear their voices, there's more time for character development, and I love the makeup of the party, which is something that I really wanted to speak to individually. I love the diversity of the characters. I love the diversity of the players too, but also of the characters. So I started watching Dice Camera Action, enjoying it. I fall asleep to it oftentimes, listening to stories, and then it really relaxes me and brings me down. Holly Conrad was talking last night about her anxiety, and she couldn't sleep, and she posted it on Twitter, and I think she's so brave and such a hero to be openly talking about it, because while a lot of progress has been made towards the stigma of mental illness, we know that the stigma still exists. And as far as I'm concerned, everything we can do to knock down those walls is important, because I still know people who won't get the help they need because of the stigma of mental illness. So I appreciate Holly Conrad's openness in talking about that, and talking about how Strix is an expression of her anxiety. But I do love the Waffle Crew characters' diversity. You've got Nate, who is a musician, and you have Holly, who is a cosplay extraordinaire, and Anna, who's a programmer, I think, for Twitch, and then Jared, who's a gamer reviewer, and all these other things. And so I love the diversity of the players, but what I'm passionate about, or what I love the most, is I love the diversity of the party. I love the whole suboptimal theme, because most of the time in D&D, I've grown up playing with a variety of different people, but I played with my brothers. And sometimes I think that man D&D, some people want to call it, you get all these guys at the table, and it's going to be different than when you have a mixed group like Dice Camera Action, which is another reason why I love it, that diversity factor, right? And so it often becomes a little bit like a video game. It's kill, and the munchkin leaps out of us. Now, I'm running a group right now that started in my church, and now it's just a group of my good friends. And that group is an interesting group. I will refer back to it, I'm sure, quite a bit. It's an interesting premise called the Scavengers. The idea is that they recruit their mercenary guild members from the dead, and they clap this little scavenger bracer on them, and their mercenary guild has a pact with their spirit ancestors of the continent. And that pact is basically all about them being able to come back from the dead for an amount of time based on the bracer. So that's the premise of the party. I'll refer back to it. That's why I go into it a bit, and it's rather magnificent. So anyway, that being the case, it's an interesting scenario. So I love the party at the table, and I love what everybody is doing. I love the diversity of the people there. Now, I love the diversity of the characters probably the most. Starting with Strix. Everybody loves Strix, okay? And there's a reason that everybody loves Strix. To begin with, I play the mage, right? I play the mage all the time. I always have to have a wizard. If I'm playing two characters, I am playing a mage of some kind. It's a sorcerer, a wizard, a witch. I'm way into witches in my campaign, and if I am playing that, then I'm happy. I'm safe. I've got my happy, with being able to cast spells. And then my other character, if I'm playing two characters, is usually some kind of exploration into something I don't love quite as much. Like it'll be a fighter, or it'll be a bard, or it'll be something else like that. And anyway, so that's what I do. So I'm drawn to Strix because of that. But I'm also drawn to Strix because she so goes against the grain of that Munchkin D&D style that I talked about in the beginning. So you have Munchkin D&D style, and you're looking at a really interesting kind of motivation. It's grab the treasure. It's metagaming. It's go for the loot. It's all of these things, right? And so the gist of the matter is Strix is totally the opposite of that. She's not metagaming. She's just doing her, right? And the way that Holly plays her is really interesting because Holly will play her in a way where she does the exact opposite of what a metagamer does. A metagamer, and you go back to the part in when she was in her aunt's house. I don't remember what her name is. Ezek hated her. I remember that, right? So Strix is in her aunt's house in Ravenloft, and she... she could have made allies. She could have tried to learn more about Strahd. The metagamer in me, when Strix was trapped in that house in Barovia with her aunt, who starts this devil cult worship, which, by the way, I thought was a really interesting thing to just stick in Barovia. Her aunt is trying to, basically make her a focus of this cult or bring her into it. And what does Strix do? She freaks out. She not only freaks out, she doesn't try any kind of deception at all. She doesn't pretend like she's okay. The whole time she's like, and then she runs away, which she runs away when you're looking at this devil cult thinking, what if these are all spoiled nobles? And she could take them all out with one fireball. So what does she do? She does drop the fireball, but she doesn't stick around and finish the fight and loot the thing. She runs away. I remember thinking, what are you doing? You're running away. You could be getting information. You could be like looting magic items from her. The Munchkin in me is looking at that, and the metagamer is going, there was different things you could do. But she Strixed it, and that made it 10 times better. So I love her character because of that. I also love that she picks her own spells, and she doesn't really care. I mean, she's got some powerful offensive ability, but half her spells are for acting. She turns herself into a cloud, and then she pouts as a cloud, or she's, sitting somewhere. It's like it's an escape for her. Like, I'll just turn into a cloud. Why? Well, I don't know. The guy has a magic item, so it's not even going to put it. I don't care. I'm turning into a cloud. Why? Because I can, and I love that about her. So I think she's hilarious. I also love how Holly Conrad has her making up her own language. I'm sorry, I don't call it sigil, I call it sigil, because a sigil is like a rune, and that's the connection I made. So in my head, it's sigil. So you're going to have to forgive me if I say sigil instead of sigil. She may want to push me down the stairs or something after that, I don't know, but Strix, not Holly. Well, I don't know. Anyway, I love that she makes up her own words. I love the snickety snooks. I mean, that's kind of, but the snursin, the snake person, she's a snursin, and it's just ridiculous. But her character, Strix, has kind of this childlike quality where she makes up her own thing. She perceives the world in a way, and sometimes she just tries to make the world conform to the way that she perceives it because she can't handle the rest of the reality. So she cuts out and carves the piece of the reality that she can take, and she works with it, and she operates within that realm of reality. And I think we all do that, right? We all take reality, and then we make of it what we want it to be until we can handle maybe, more. And then we do handle more, and we grow and we learn and expand and whatnot. But I love her character because of that. I love the way that Holly plays her. And I will also say props to Holly on the way that she is consistent with Strix calling people Cutter and Burke and using the Planescape vocabulary. She's really consistent with that, and that it's good acting, and that's something that really adds to her character. So love the Strix. Okay, moving on to Paulton. Okay, all right. So I want to say first of all that Paulton has grown on me. Okay, he's grown on me, and I kind of like his character now. I think at the beginning I reacted the same way a lot of the fans did. Nate was gone the most, and I was questioning whether or not he really gave a crap about the stream to begin with, about the whole endeavor, and also because of the extent of his role play seemed limited to "I'm drunk" and "huh," and I thought, okay, so I'll tell you what I really thought. I seriously thought, is he playing World of Warcraft on another screen? I mean, what does he do? You know, like, what's really going on here? I don't have the technical skills to do that, but all four of these people I'm sure do. So anyway, I thought that was fairly interesting. Yeah, so Paulton's grown on me a little bit. I thought he was interesting, but that kind of turned me off at the beginning. I did like, he had some good moments, though. Like when they were in that house and someone in Barovia and someone's baby had been kidnapped. And Paulton goes, well, you know what we need is a lively tune. And I was like, oh, first of all, I was like, wait, are you role-playing? And then when he did it, I was like, the absurdity of this situation, which, by the way, the absurdity of the Waffle Crew is one of its strengths. They take absurdity and they make it into an art form, right? Poor DF. And we'll talk about that in a minute, right? But I absolutely love that. So for me, that's absolutely fantastic. I couldn't love it more. But Paulton, he grows on you. One of the other issues I had is Chris Perkins was just showering Nate with these rich roleplay opportunities, and I was like, oh my gosh, dude, take advantage of this. You are sitting at the table with Christopher friggin' Perkins, okay? And he's giving you this rich hour. I mean, he could have been the next Strahd von Zarovich, right? Chris totally set that up for him. He gift wrapped it and handed it to him. He could have, you know, honestly, I could have seen him working his way into the 6th edition D&D Ravenloft book, you know. Oh, look at this character. There's Paulton. He's this psychotic bard who, you know, is a vassal of Strahd from time to time, you know, or who replaced, you know, Strahd as a Dark Lord once and was deposed because, you know, if we're going to do Ravenloft again, you got to put Strahd back in the castle. Ravenloft does not work if you don't put Strahd back in the castle, right? And it's really interesting, too, because Ravenloft is rich as a kind of I guess a source or a resource for varied and wildly interesting NPCs. So, for instance, one of them there is a bard NPC I was thinking of. I had a monsters compendium of NPCs from Ravenloft. I think it was Ravenloft Compendium 2, and it was really great. And there were all these NPCs. There was like Jacqueline Montari, who's this lady. She's like Mombi from Return to Oz. She has all these cut off women's heads, and she can, you know, put the heads on. And Jacqueline's curse actually starts in Castle Ravenloft, right? And with the Vistani, like all good things in Ravenloft begin with, you know, Castle Ravenloft and the Vistani. So, but anyway, there was this book, and so Jacqueline was one there. Another bard that I was talking about, his name was, I think, Andres Ruval or something like that, and he was a bardic lich. And in 2nd edition, those things were always more interesting because 2nd edition, like 1st edition D&D, stuck very much to this is what an elf can be, and this is what an elf's level limit is, and this is how far an elf can go, and ne'er may he go beyond the limits of his race and his character class. And so a bardic lich was a novelty, and whenever the you know, and I guess maybe that was an idea that wasn't as fluid as it is now. The idea that Chris is constantly selling, that we want to make D&D free of rules. You know, adopt the rules if you want them, throw them all out if you want. You know, and Shelley Mazanova writes really interesting things about that. She is, I think, still is a brand manager for D&D. But she writes very interesting things about that, about the rules and not liking some of the rules. I think she was instrumental in getting Magic Missile in 4th edition changed back. But whenever anything popped up like that in 2nd edition, it was interesting because they were breaking the rules. And we were like, oh, well, I didn't know you could have a Bardic Lich. Now that's, I guess maybe I guess I have permission now to make Bardic Liches. Maybe I could make a Cleric Lich. Like, maybe, I don't know, you know. So anyway, it was interesting because I think 3rd edition broke that. 3rd edition was all about possibilities. If you want to make a halfling sorcerer, go for it. If you want to have a dwarven wizard, they can be just as good as anybody else. So anyway, which is something I'll be talking about a lot. I've played D&D for 20 years, just about. I started when I was 9, I'm 38, so just about 20 years. I've played 2nd through 5th edition. I haven't really touched 5th edition all that much. I've done more reading of the books in 5th edition, but anyway, that's why I love the Strix, and that's one of the reasons why I thought Paulton, I had a hard time with Paulton in the beginning, but he's grown on me quite a bit. First of all, I don't know if any of you, or many of you even, have begun to look at Nate Wants to Battle's music, but he's a very good performer. And he's got, in terms of vocalist, I'm a vocalist, and in terms of his vocal ability, I'm really impressed with his range. His song and his style, maybe not the music that I would choose to listen to. I do more pop and 80s rock, and I do a lot of, I like Broadway stuff. Anyway, so I do more lyrical, but his music is pretty interesting. In fact, I even suggested that when Chris put up the idea of, hey, what are Simon's first words, I suggested some lyrics from one of Nate's songs. And I thought, one of his singles, Branded, I think is the name of the single, and he has that part of the chorus where he says, I'm not going to sing it for you. I'll probably sing it at some point on the channel. I'm not going to do it now, but he goes, I never mean well, I can't help but help myself. And I thought, oh, that would be so awesome. First of all, I think it'd be so cool for Nate if Chris took some of Nate's lyrics and kind of made that connection, showed him that we appreciate him for his music too, in addition to what he does with Dice Camera Action. So I listened to his music and I thought, okay, I got to give this guy another chance. He's musical. I like what he's done here. So anyway, and I thought those lyrics particularly described not only Piddlewick, which is what Simon's name really is, not that I think Simon, the character, cares or would care, but I thought it'd be interesting to see that. And so, and Paulton opened up a lot more. And I think part of the reason is, I could be totally wrong about this, I don't know. Maybe he was playing World of Warcraft in the background, but I think maybe Nate's just a newer D&D player, and there are all kinds of different D&D players, right? There are some, like the group that I started at my church, I had one guy who was like me, who's kind of a classic geek, right? Loved all things geek. And then another one of them, who's actually my best friend, loved the man like a brother. He's more into sports, but he has this really strong geek side of him, as long as we don't call it geek. So I remember I called him a geek once in church, and I was meaning it as a term of brotherhood, and I got the stink eye. He's like, I'm like, whoa, okay. Apparently we're not ready to embrace all the parts of, of us, and that's okay. But it was funny. But now I think he loves D&D now. So he's a little bit more hesitant with role-playing. Ironically, he's also the best one at the table at role-playing now. And then I have another guy who's really kind of a munchkin player. He fumbles for words whenever there's any kind of role-playing. He's like, can't we just hit something? But he's great, and I find ways to bring out the role-player in him, right? So I think maybe Nate is one of those people. And I think he's gotten better at role-playing as time has gone on. I like Anna said, I like how truly chaotic neutral he is. Anna mentioned that on something. Maybe she said it on Waffle Talk. I don't know. But it was really interesting. He is chaotic neutral. He's like, ooh, ring winter. No, dude. Do you have any idea what kind of friggin' warning labels come with that thing? I mean, I had no idea. What I did know is, oh, you just played right into Chris Perkins' hand. And that's something I should make a side note about. In my mind, Chris Perkins, he has these loving evil moments as a DM. And I think of him when he does this evil thing as kind of like his alter ego. And so he loves those moments when they play into his hands. And I love it because, they're having this extreme emotional reaction, and he's in the background going, and I think that's hilarious. And so Paulton puts on the Ring of Winter, and I'm like, oh boy, okay. Chris is going to have a field day with this, number one. And when Paulton came back in episode 83 maybe or whatever, and he was like, puts his hands on his shoulder, and he was like, everything's okay, Evelyn, everything's okay. I was like, I was like, that's not Paulton. I was like, and if it is Paulton, he's taking you for a ride, he's playing you a song. I was like, no, everything is not okay. It's not okay. And I bet you Anna probably knew that too. She's like, nope, we're screwed. So, but that was interesting. So Nate's grown on me. I think he's probably growing as a role player. His interaction, breaking the fourth wall, I'll talk about that later because I do want to review episodes 84 and 85 today. I meant to start with 84, but like I said, I'm a techno immigrant, so I do not know how to operate most of this. I don't even know if this stream is working right now, to be honest with you. I have no idea. So it's going to be interesting for me to see if this is working out, But there you go. Anyway, so that's interesting. So I do like Paulton now. Jumping into Evelyn, okay. Evelyn is my heart, and I think it's funny, and maybe that says things about me. That Evelyn is the character who I love the most. It started out I loved Strix the most, and I guess Evelyn or Anna Prosser Robinson took a lot of heat, I think, originally. And people just thought Evelyn was annoying. And I don't think that they understood what her role play was. And even understanding her role play, it is annoying. But it's supposed to be annoying. And that's kind of part of the thing. But I have a soft spot for her. Evelyn is hilarious. She's absolutely hilarious. I roared with laughter in the beginning of Dice Camera Action. I don't know why Chris and everybody, well, probably mostly just Chris, had a hard time with her name, Evelyn. He kept calling her Evelyn, and then, my favorite part, he progressed to calling her Evelyn, like the Wicked Witch from He-Man and Masters of the Universe. And I'm watching Anna's face on the stream, and she's like, "That's fine, I'm playing D&D with Chris Perkins, I don't care." And I'm like, good girl, give it time, right? And it's funny, too, because it bugs, because she loves Evelyn. And that's one of the things that I love about Anna, is that Anna loves her character. She absolutely, she's real to her, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, later on when we look at the review here in the stream. Later on, I've been talking for a half hour here, and I was wondering if I was going to be able to fill up a half hour. It's like, maybe I'll be done in 25 minutes, so I don't know. Anyway, it was kind of awesome, because as I got to know Evelyn, I saw that she would have, these moments of incredible character, and the irritating she began to make work for her more. My personal favorite moment of irritation was when the fire giant picked her up and had her in her hands, and Anna's like, now the whole time she's carrying it, even inside, "So what do you do with that? Why are you in the kitchen? Are you fire giant? What's your name?" And the fire giant lady was like, shut up, ah! And she finally just plunges her in a scalding hot pot, right? But I thought, that's fantastic, and she made it work for her, right? But I love Evelyn. I love the constant Lathander lens is obnoxious at times, but like I said, it's meant to be overbearing. The point of Evelyn's character is that she is overbearing. Like she said, the world does in fact revolve around me. And I like that for a couple of reasons. One, it gives variety to the party, and two, it gives something for Strix to play off of. Strix, who views the universe through the lens of the powers, Evelyn, who views the universe the way most primes would, which is, did you like that, Holly Conrad? I used the word prime. I called it like most primes would. There you go. That was for you. Okay. Anyway, most primes think of the gods as the greatest powers in the universe. A dweller or a denizen or citizen of Sigil thinks of the powers as just being a strong power. And there's no difference maybe between a Dark Lord of the Shadowfell, an Archfey of the Feywild, or a god. I play that a little differently in my campaign because I feel like, because it plays into the story of my campaign. In my campaign world, the gods failed in their duties, and they were ousted, and the world actually began to fall out of orbit, which is also the topic. I wove that into the history and backstory of my novel also, and it was interesting. But in my campaign, one of my campaign worlds, the one that I used the most, the Archfey began to kind of absorb the world into the Feywild with the hopes of becoming gods. So maybe that's also just the lens that I have. Everybody wants to be a god, right? You've got all these powers that are trying to become gods. Loth was a demon queen, but it wasn't enough. She wanted to become a god again. So there must be something special about gods, right? That's like, of the powers, they're the top of the food chain. The primordials maybe used to be there, the elder evils, but now it's the gods. They're in charge of the multiverse now, or they have the biggest stick, I guess you could say. So I love that about her. For Curse of Strahd, also, Evelyn was perfect. And for the torture that Chris likes to enact, Chris is like, they may have left Barovia, but I feel like Barovia has never left Chris. I feel like he just finds moments. It's not a question of when, a question of if, it's a question of when. He's going to channel Barovia at some point. So I think that's interesting. But she was perfect for Curse of Strahd, because there had to be that source of light, even if it was an obnoxious, overbearing source of light. And Evelyn had to be bold. It was really a time where a paladin should shine gets squashed for sure. That's the point of Ravenloft. The point of Ravenloft is that the balance of evil is tipped in evil's, between good and evil, it's tipped in evil's direction. And I think that's kind of the point of Ravenloft, and that's where Ravenloft works the best. You should feel hopeless in Ravenloft. That's why they're called Domains of Dread, right? And that's kind of the shtick of the Shadowfell, that it's supposed to be that way. So I do think Evelyn's hilarious. Also, as a person of faith, I love Evelyn. I feel like she's out there like representing my peeps, which is interesting because I feel like if Anna is not some kind of Christian, like whether she's born again, Pentecostal, or non-denominational, whatever, I will be shocked and I'll lose a bet and I'll eat my hat, because she's commented on how Evelyn is an expression of who she is and that faith that she has. So I don't know what her faith is, to be honest with you, but I feel like she channels it, and Evelyn, therefore, for people like me, people who are religious and people who are huge D&D fans, huge fantasy fans, she's like kind of one of our representatives out there, which I think makes Evelyn even more special for viewers like me. So anyway, I find her great about that. And then finally there's Diath. Poor Diath. I don't know what Jared Knoppenbauer had in his mind for Diath when he first started. I don't think it ended up being what he wanted. Diath is interesting to me because of what Jared said on a stream, on YouTube. I saw the clip where he said, I see that we need a straight man, for this party to function. I guess that's true. I mean, somebody's got to play dad, and I feel bad because I feel like Diath frequently gets thrown into the role of dad, because the reality of the fact is Diath is surrounded by lunatics. First of all, he's got Strix, who Holly has said is an expression of her anxiety. She never does what's good for the combat situation. I mean, okay, that's not true. Sometimes she drops these huge fireballs and she lays waste to everyone. So sometimes she does. But she does things that throw monkeys in the, wrench just as much as she does the other. So anyway, I like that about her. I like that about the Waffle Crew. And so, Diath can't do that. He can't be the eccentric. And then there's Paulton, who's drunk and half the time, and what's going on, and well, I don't know what spell to cast, and where the metagamer is thinking, well, I'm going to do dissonant whispers, or I'm going to attack with my rapier. No, I'm just going to wait because I don't want to draw aggro or whatever, So there's that. Interesting. And then there's Evelyn, who is, a leader and a source of light, but she can't lead in the right way. She only knows how to lead through the lens of Lathander, and that doesn't work with everybody. I don't think that works in most cases in terms of her being able to take the forefront of the party. So I feel like poor Diath is like, I don't know, Evelyn's always talking about mom-arming people, but I feel like poor Diath is the one who gets thrown into the position of daddy and nursemaid and caretaker, and I'm like, I know he got transformed into a youth, but I'd have gray hairs if I were him by now. Although he's dying at this point, so I'm sure he's got all kinds of gray everything. Anyway, so Diath's interesting, but that's why I love the characters. I want to get into a little bit of the the episodes and what I saw and what I liked and interesting things. So what I want to do for this was kind of a get to know you stream for me. For you to get to know me and me to put just my feelings about the characters out there. But I want to review the episodes, and I'm going to do that in an organized way. I want to talk about the nyah moments, right? Because there are nyah moments all over Dice Camera Action. And I want to talk about great character moments and why I loved them and why I enjoyed them. And I want to do it in a constructive way, but also to take joy, as we go. And then I also want to maybe make a few predictions or not predictions, because I don't, you can't predict what Chris is going to do, because Chris is so good and he's so comfortable at this point in improvising. I've been a DM for 20 years. He's been a DM for 200 years or whatever. Sorry, dude. I'm not saying you're old, man. You're totally, you're lit, yo. You're jiggy with it, or whatever people say now. See, I'm old. But he's got all that experience, and so he doesn't hesitate to improvise. So you can't predict what he's going to do, because I think he was steering us towards Paulton becoming a Dark Lord. Then maybe they unseat Paulton, or maybe he unseats Strahd and they have to work with Strahd in order to kick him out so that they can have Paulton back, right? The Domain of Dread has to have a Dark Lord or it will dissolve. And the Dark Powers don't want that. And for those of you who may not be aware, the Dark Powers are not the Dark Lords of the Domains of Dread in Ravenloft, in the demi-plane of Dread, right? The Dark Powers are the writers and the makers of the supplements and the rule books. They called themselves the Kargat, right? Or the Kargatine, the Dark Powers. That was Aslan's secret police from the Domain of Dread Darken. They call themselves the Kargatine. They are the powers. So Chris is the Dark Powers according to the way that they kind of set up that structure, right? And so I find that to be incredibly interesting. You can't predict where Chris is going to go, because Chris will change his mind about a dramatic event, even if he's halfway through the stream, and he'll go with it. I've watched him do it. And I'm not saying that I have the power to, read his mind, or do I? But no, I'm not saying that. But I am saying that I think it's obvious when he uses the gift that he has for storytelling and runs with what the characters do. Very impressive to me. So anyway, curious about that. But I will make predictions, I think, of things that he could do, of ideas. I may talk about things that I would do. I'm not going to talk about them probably often in a way that is critical in that way. That's one of the things that I irritated me about the Waffle Talk, which is one of the reasons why I decided to do this. In the last Waffle Talk that I watched, they were talking about how plot hammering, Scarlet Moth, I think is her name, she was talking about the plot hammering and how she felt like Chris, he didn't let Strix cut off the finger, with the ring on it. He didn't let the time stop work. He gave the moment to Miranda. And he was, he was manipulating events, but a dungeon master has to do that at times. Because ultimately, if there's no story, then we don't really have a story. D&D is shared storytelling at its best, right? And at its worst, maybe it's hack and slash like a video game. I don't know, but that's best for other people. So it's a matter of preference. But anyway, but that irritated me because she said he was plot hammering, and it bugged her. And I'll be honest with you, it was heavy. I thought it was heavy. But then another person, Sean McGovern or whatever his name is, was talking about how, we can't question Chris Perkins. We can't, and I was like, why not? This is part of putting your creative work out there. There are people who are going to see my stream and go bang, bang, bang. They're going to shoot it full of holes, and I have to be okay with that. Even if I disagree with them. I think that's kind of the fun part of it too, is to see where we disagree and what we think about and find it interesting. So I do love that part of it. And anyway, it's interesting. That being said, the places I think he'll go, I'll talk about that. I'm interested in this idea of the Pancake Crew. I love the Dark Mirror. Absolutely love the foil. The character who is a representation of maybe the evil direction that the hero could have gone. And classic examples of that being Artemis Entreri from the Dark Elf series, right? I lapped up every story about him. I think Ari Salvador just loved Entreri in a way that he couldn't love Driss. It's kind of like in Supernatural when he talks about, God in Supernatural talks about how, the devil, or not the devil, what is his name? Crowley and Rowena, how he's a very guilty pleasure of his. And I love that idea that God is a guilty pleasure, and that, we have the same thing. So, I think that the pancake, I love the foil. I love that idea that the pancake, that there could be an evil Evelyn out there, right? And she's as maybe wicked and morose as Evelyn is optimistic and self-sacrificing. That there could be a Diath out there who's, I don't know, Diath Lateith or Latiad or whatever, I don't know, who's out there, trying to confuse people and trying to get them to, trying to get the party to chill. That there's a Paulton out there maybe who's motivated, but who's evil, who loves the Ring of Winter and revels in the evil. Or a Strix out there who takes delight in chaos and feeds off it instead of finding it to be stressful. I don't know. Faith Lahaney from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. When they brought in the Dark Slayer, I was like, yay, yes, bring in the evil foil. I love that. Or Callisto from Xena Warrior Princess, right? You bring the evil foil on the scene, the Dark Mirror, and you've got me as a viewer. First, make me care about the main character, and then bring in the Dark Mirror. I would love to see the Pancake crew become not just enemies, but huge enemies. I mean, if you want to make Strahd the enemy be felt, he has to be felt all through the adventure. The Curse of Strahd manual talks about that in a lot of detail. You've got to make them feel Strahd. He's got to show up more than once. For the Pancake crew to really be fully realized, they have to show up. They have to be felt. They have to make appearances and run away and come back again. That is the only way that you can make a villain memorable, is by the choices that they make and when they show up again and run away. Because a really worthy villain is not going to go out in a blaze of glory until they have no other options, because they're in it for the long haul. At least that's how I look at it. So that's some of my predictions. I want to talk a little bit about the specific moments, or whatever. I will tell you that, I think I already told you, in my mind, Chris's alter ego, I call him Percifer Christens. And whenever he does something, really evil to Evelyn, like when he knows how Holly Conrad and Anna Prosser Robinson feel about animals, right? Which I was roaring with laughter. I thought it was hilarious. But when he was having Anna open up her chest plate, and there is Juniper's skeleton because she'd aged, and there's a little skeleton, and Anna's like, and she's 2 seconds away from ugly cry. And I know Anna was like, Chris Perkins, but I love you, I hate you moment. But I thought it was hilarious. And when Waffles threw herself into that into the portcullis trying to get to the Waffle crew, and Anna's in the back room, sweet baby, and Holly Conrad is like, no, I love the players' reactions because they are such big animal lovers. I'm an animal lover, although my wife and my daughter are violently allergic to cats and dogs, so I can pet a fish, I guess, if I'm lucky. I love animals too, but I also think they're delicious. So not cats and dogs, but anyway, you get the idea. So that being said, I do kind of love those moments, or Percifer Christens, anyway, and I love those. So I want to go back to episode 85 or 84. One of my favorite moments from that was when we have Evelyn's speech to Paulton. And that's one of the other reasons why I love Anna and I love Evelyn, is because Anna takes the time to really invest in writing. She's a writer. I mean, obviously she and Holly and Jared are writers, and Nate too. He writes his own, he's more of a music writer, but they're all writers. And Anna prepares, she scripts things out, because I do that. And as a dungeon master, I do that. Curse of Strahd does that. All of the D&D books have kind of like speeches. Sometimes this is what the character is going to say. If you want to portray your villain well in D&D, you have to write something. You have to plan out some things that they're going to say in order to be able to establish. I do that with my characters too. I write catchphrases. Obviously, Strix has a lot of them, right? I know magic, and I don't know why she goes Canadian like Chris, and she's like, magic. I'm not sure why she goes there sometimes, but I love it. But she knows the magic, and so anyway, I find it to be interesting. But I love those moments when he's twisting. And one of those prepared moments that Anna had that I loved was when she goes up there and she says to him, Paulton, I never asked you to be anything but what you are, and in the back of my mind, okay, I am hearing the Jekyll and Hyde song, take me as I am, and I'm hearing this in the background. And by the way, Nate and Anna, you both sing. Why don't you do a Take Me As I Am cover as Evelyn and Paulton? Don't do the robot thing, because we all know that's not going to last forever, because nothing is going to come of evil, Pault Leave or whatever. I don't know what Bennifer name is for them. Nothing's going to come of that while Anna's a robot, because no one wants to have sex with a robot. I hope that's not too graphic for the viewers, but like I said, I'm going to do me here, and I'm going to be honest with you. They can't have a physical connection. Nobody wants to kiss a piece of tin. So I don't. Although Paulton, I don't. He kind of a freak, yo. So I don't know. Maybe that could. I don't know. So that being the case, and I think Anna did mention that Nate said that wouldn't stop Paulton's character at this point. But it is interesting to me. So I know I keep saying that, but it is. It's fascinating to me. But when she stands in front of that party, the greatest confrontation that has to happen between Evelyn and Paulton. It was a watershed moment, and I'm glad that Chris has let some of those play out, because to be honest with you, there are times when I'm like, I wondered if Nate was handling this well, the fact that Evelyn was playing like she had a crush on him. Nate just got engaged, and there are boundaries, and I know Anna's married, if you want, I think you can YouTube her wedding proposal at Disneyland by her husband, which I thought was interesting, but I guess if your life is on the camera all the time, you don't hesitate to put those things out there. But it was really interesting to me because he lets those moments happen. And I was like, my gut, I was like, oh, take me as I am, is in the background. She tells him, I never asked you to be anything but what you are. I never wanted anything but you, And it's true. She hasn't, She loves him in spite of his faults. Maybe she loves him because of his faults, who knows? She has this infatuation, and it's clearly not stopping her. And so, I don't know what I wanted Nate to do in that moment. I don't know how I wanted. I did hate the barrier that she can't go in, because I thought if anybody takes Paulton out, the most dramatic thing we could do, the movie kind of script writing, would say that Evelyn goes in and Evelyn is the one to take him out. Why? Because she has the most to lose by taking Paulton out. And therefore the conflict is the greatest, and that makes for a great story. And so I do love that. And sorry, I'm playing the Jekyll and Hyde thing in my head now. I think that this video needs to get made. Maybe those of you who play the video out there can post it. I want to see them do it. They both sing. Come on, y'all. Make the video. Anyway, I do like that. So it's interesting to me. It's interesting to me that confrontation happened. I don't really like the way that it played out, I guess. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with the way that they played it out. Miranda got away with the ring. The campaign has to move on. Chris has ideas, and he has to make split decisions about where it's going to go and what he's going to do. And so I find that to be fantastic. So that was one of my great watershed moments from that. And then another one was he dropped Strix, yo. He drops her. She gets knifed into that. She pops back in. Hi, I've come back. I can save the day. And then boom, down she goes. And not only that, your magic item doesn't work. Although I do kind of like the fact that she got screwed on the magic item, because that's very Omen drawn from Acquisitions Incorporated, and it makes for a good role-playing opportunity later when Strix confronts him and is like, "Hey, a-hole, what the freak, yo, with your your easy answers and your cheap magic items, right?" And then he's like, "Well, I didn't say. I said it was a contract, and all that good stuff." So I liked that. That was a great moment for me. Miranda makes off with the ring. Whatever. They get Paulton back. I was a little bit disappointed in Paulton, maybe not Nate, maybe Paulton, in his reaction. He sits down and takes a bucket of wine, and Anna reacted to it perfectly. In my head, what I wanted to happen, like my ultimate scenario, I want Anna to say, "Paulton, I never asked you to be anything but what you are," and then he, attacks or whatever, and then she goes in and knees him in the balls. I don't know why. I don't like. She just crotch knees him, And it's like, well, apparently there are limits to my love, and you just felt them. So I wanted her to drop him with a crotch shot, or the Johnny Cage punch. I'm not sure, something like that. But that's not what we got, and that's okay, because what we got afterwards in episode 85 was interesting. The Munchkin in me always wants to see the combat, but at this point, I'm so invested in the Dice Camera action characters that I don't know that I care as much that they're doing the combat, I did kind of like the Grandfather Turtle episode. I thought it was interesting. I don't know necessarily if everybody liked it, but I liked it. So I thought, this is really great, having these back and forths, and you get Paulton and they're going, feelings are bad. Feelings make you weak. Feelings make things hard. And and I like things to be easy, and I guess that's one of the reasons why I backed up. I was like, Nate is playing his character. It's just that Paulton is a huge douche. I'm like, dude, you just seriously, such a douche beat. I'm like, really, he doesn't deserve her. In some ways, I feel like it's an abusive relationship, right? She keeps coming in for affection, and that was one of the other things I want to say. So Anna, I swear to you, I would love to hear Anna talk about this. She has obviously known unrequited love, right? At some point. She's known unrequited. I'm like, when did that happen, Anna? Because you know it well. And maybe every teenager goes through that, teenage dream where you're in love with someone, or you feel that you think you're in love with someone. What you're really feeling is great passion, and the fact that, part of your cortex is more developed in the emotion center than the reasoning center. But the fact is, Evelyn has this infatuation, and Paulton has never measured up. And yet she loves him anyway. And is that healthy? And I like that. So to an extent, I think Evelyn has to at some point stand up and demand better of Paulton, or maybe the relationship isn't healthy. Maybe it is abusive. If it is, Evelyn's obviously allowing it, but I loved her prayer, that she scripted that prayer, and it was beautiful. I was like, you go, Anna. It was beautiful. And not only was it beautiful, it was stylistically very impressive. It sounded like a prayer that one of the Morning Lord's worshipers would write. And I like, there you go again, like what I was saying before. Anna's a writer, and Holly's a writer, and you can hear it in the things that they sometimes prepare and do. Like the song that they did, obviously I'm a singer, I love the song that they did, and I thought it was fantastic. And it's not the kind of thing that's going to show up at my gaming table with the players that I have and the style that we do. I do love the mechanic and the combat part of the game. I do. I'm always going to love it. That's always probably going to have first place in my heart, but it means nothing, and it's boring if you do not have quality roleplay and great storytelling. D&D isn't D&D if you don't have that elements. It's just another game, right? Instead of the greatest game on earth, the greatest showman, the greatest game on earth, whatever, right? So I loved that moment. And when they have this moment where they're talking and chats, okay, this is where I felt like Nate has really found his niche. Jared says DF is a straight man. Holly is she's the walking ball of anxiety. Anna is she's the self-righteous and yet also truly righteous, paladin of Lathander. She's the religious person. Paulton's the douche. But now we get like Paulton Deadpool, which I think is very funny. I like it, Let him break the fourth wall. And I was dying, and I watched it like 3 times. I was dying when I went back and I looked and I was like, okay, so I was like, shh, chat, you can't rush these things. And Anna, she played it so, she's like, what's a subreddit? I was like, yes, Anna, this is awesome. Is he like Santa Claus? Yeah. And I was praying to Lathander. Those were great moments. I loved it. I love Paulton's meta. Like, maybe that's Paulton's thing now. I feel like it's interesting. Maybe he drops those references casually. He's the dice camera action Deadpool now. So I do kind of like that. I liked Simon is a real boy. The Munchkin in me thinks it's kind of a lousy reward for being able to, bring those things to the Raven Queen and to please a power. It's I want my sword of cutting +5 or whatever, But my brother did that once in a campaign we were running. My brother Dan got this magic wand that turned people to stone from a Medusa. And I had a character, he was a priest of kind of like a Luru the Unicorn from the Forgotten Realms kind of god. He was a priest of Fiorin, who is a god of plants and magical animals, right? So he's a magical nature god, blending the arcane with the primal. And his reward was a wand that turned people to stone. I got a baby Pegasus. And I was like, really? What am I supposed to do? Throw that into battle? And knowing my brother, he would have killed that thing so fast. He's like, where's your Pegasus when the fireball hits? Where's the Pegasus? Like, that was my brother. He was a terrible dungeon master. Great storyteller, awful dungeon master. Far too much Perker for Christians in him. But anyway, I digress a lot. I tangent. That's me. I do me. But it was interesting, that part of it to me. I loved that part where they were talking and Paulton, you get that hint that Nate is willing to explore it, which I think maybe when he started playing the stream, he was like, I don't know that I'm comfortable. I've got a girlfriend, I don't know that he was comfortable. Obviously, Anna's been role playing or acting, and she was comfortable with it, but it was interesting in that way. So I thought that was a great watershed moment when Paulton puts his hands on his shoulders, and everyone's like, kiss her. And in the background, I can hear the entire chat going, kiss the girl, wah, wah, for the Little Mermaid, and I'm just going and I wondered what Nate was going to do. And then somebody said something, I think freaking Jared, he said something, and I think Nate changed his mind. He was like, you can't rush these things, chat. I don't know what he was going to do. Maybe he wasn't going to kiss her. Maybe he would have kissed her on the cheek. I don't know. But somebody said something, and I loved Holly, too, when that one time Holly brings up the kiss her sign. I was like, wait, yes, Holly. She's being quiet and respecting the show they're putting on, right? It's their moment. It's their scene on the stage, but I loved it. So anyway, that was fascinating to me. Loved that part of it. One of the things the Waffle Talk said, one of the other things I was like, that they said was they felt like Chris interrupted the Strix and Diath romance. I'm sorry. I know that the episode with the turtle kind of revealed the Strix and Diath romance, but I don't see that as a possibility. I don't think Jared really sees that either, even though he told, Evelyn in the turtle episode, he's like, don't tell her, Yeah, don't tell her, because I don't think it's there, Diath and Strix's relationship is more like caretaker and mentally ill baby sister, or something like that, who, or maybe prodigy, magical prodigy, mentally ill baby sister, I don't know. But it's more like caretaker. I think I couldn't romance her until she took a bath, started brushing her teeth, and all of the people out there are triggered out of that. You're just all about appearances, you nasty ginger. And I'm like, no, dude, okay? Everybody appreciates good hygiene, okay? Ain't nobody want to lie down with somebody they going to give them bugs, okay? So don't take your trigger and just no, okay? So anyway, that's just how I feel about that. I'm not seeing it. I would have cut it off too. The story has to move forward at some point. There's got to be direction. There has to be structure. D&D is not wandering an open world. If you want to do that, go play an MMO or play an open world game like one of the Nether Scrolls games. It's shared storytelling at its best, and someone has to lead it. So people hate the secret, chaotic, evil character. That's why the Dungeon Master's guides over the editions, they advise against it. Don't play against the party. There's got to be some kind of party unity. There can be party friction, like when Paulton holds up the pieces of Simon and he goes, "Are you happy? Are you happy now?" I was like, "Wow, way to go, Nate!" Like that was one of those role playing moments where he got me, where I was like, "Oh, I'm on board now. I'm on board with your character. You've done something with this, right?" The Raven Queen moment I thought was interesting. Sorry for the spoilers, by the way. I should have advertised ahead of time. Don't watch this if you don't like spoilers. But I want to talk about what I want to talk about. So I liked the Raven Queen moment. I thought it was interesting that they've taken her in a different direction. She's a staple goddess of D&D 4th edition. We get to 5th edition, and suddenly we're not sure. Is she a goddess? Is she a dark power? It's not the first time Wizards have done this with the powers. They did it with Akkadi, which I thought was interesting. Akkadi is the primordial. In 3rd edition, Akkadi is the elemental goddess of elemental air, right? And then you move into 4th edition, and suddenly Akkadi and Kosuth and all the other gods of the elements, the 4 elements, Grumbar and Ishtishia, they're all, in 4th edition, they're all primordials. And it makes more sense when you look at it through the lens of 4th editions and the Dawn War. But now we get the Raven Queen. Is the Raven Queen a goddess? Maybe she's really a dark power of the Shadowfell. Maybe she's a Dark Lord. Maybe she's not a goddess. Maybe she's an Elder Evil. I don't know. And does it matter? And however it works in your campaign, right? That's all that matters. But I thought that was interesting. And then the fact that she rewards Simon with becoming human, that creates a number of interesting. The Munchkin in me hates the reward, but the role player in me thinks that that's fantastic. What a great opportunity. And how is Paulton going to handle that? And is he going to handle it? And great, now he has the chance to be an absentee father. Oh, Paulton, don't be a douche. This is an opportunity for character growth. Jump on it, please. Nate wants to battle. Please, Nate wants to parent, or whatever. So maybe that's what we should call him now. Nate wants to parent. Here we go. Although now that he's getting engaged, maybe we don't want to scare him with that one. But anyway, I think that's interesting. I think what makes a power compelling, the Raven Queen, is their story, the rich detail that's provided, the goals. I don't think it really necessarily matters if they're a god or a demon lord or a primordial, provided that we have rich information about them. And I think that's what ends up making them compelling. Orcus is compelling because he's got interesting information and history, right? Orcus has a wand. What are the other demon lords? They don't have wands. They've got swords and jagged weapons, but Orcus has a wand, and his area of focus is necromancy and the arcane, and he's also this huge bloated bat-winged demon behemoth. He's both of those things, and his whole history with Kiaransali, I don't know why I'm saying that with a Spanish accent, así es, the drow goddess of the undead. His whole history where she kills him and he comes back as Tenebris and suddenly he's resurrected as Orcus again. I find that to be absolutely fascinating. So the way he brings in the Raven Queen, obviously she's got to have style, right? If she doesn't come in riding in like a zombie-led coach, or if she's not doing like the Hogwarts Beauxbatons, academy carriage led by Raidens. Raiden. Yeah, now we're doing Mortal Kombat. I'm sorry. I'm stumbling over myself. It's my first time doing this. You're going to have to forgive me, or not. And if you don't, whatever. But I love that. I love that she comes in as a swarm of ravens, then one big raven. I love that she's speaking Celestial, knowing Evelyn can hear. That's nice. She gets to use Celestial. It's hard as a dungeon master to remember to bring in language. You're like, what language do you speak? Well, it's not written on the wall like that. Okay, somebody cast Comprehend Languages. Whoop! Nobody's language matters. So it's hard to bring it in. So good job, Chris, bringing in language. Interesting that she rewards Paulton. And I'll tell you where I think Chris got this from. He has his own ideas. He doesn't need inspiration, but a good dungeon master steals from everywhere, right? And he, in his article that he used to write, the Dungeon Master Experience, which, by the way, if there are any dungeon masters watching who want to improve, go read Chris's series. It's on the internet on PDF, I think, on Wizards of the Coast, the Dungeon Master Experience. He talks about that in quite a bit of detail. Beg, borrow, and plead. When he looks for villains, he looks at what's going on in the world, and suddenly he creates terrorists, and those are his villains, Carl and Nemixia, or whatever her name is. Sorry. And, And so he brings them in, and he tells us that that's his advice, look around you and steal. So the Raven Queen gives Paulton what Paulton needs the most, okay? That's exactly what happened in Supernatural with Amara. I think it was season 10, season 11? I don't know what season it is. It's the season where God's sister shows up. Sorry if I ruined that for you Supernatural fans. I apologize. But what are you doing if you're not caught up on Supernatural? Come on, yo. Anyway, I find that to be absolutely fascinating, that right there. I'm like, wait a minute, because that's what Amara does. At the end, all right, shut it off. If you're a Supernatural fan and you're watching this, shut it off now. Spoiler. Dean and Sam, when their mother, Amara, brings her back from the dead. And he tells Dean, you've given me what I need the most. She mends fences with God, right? And then God's sister Amara, she resurrects Mary Winchester. And I wonder, I'm like, and suddenly I'm like, so what, Paulton gets what he needs most, and we get, I'm a real boy, which, by the way, it's also a classic Pinocchio story. So, dude, way to go, Chris Perkins. That came from Chris Perkins. Depending on how this goes, it could be warped into a Perka for Kristen's moment. I guess we're going to have to see. But those are kind of my ideas and my thoughts about episode 85, what I loved, where it could go. There are a lot of places it could go. I'm really curious to see how this turns out and how they play it. I'm pretty sure I know how Evelyn's going to handle this. She's going, she'll want a mother. She mothers everybody. He'll have Auntie Strix and, Uncle Diath. And Auntie Strix they're probably going to have to be taking sharp objects out of his mouth that Strix gives him. Who knows? I don't know. Sorry, Holly, but Strix is kind of, she doesn't think. I also wonder, with all the snacks that she has, like, how is she not, like, getting food poisoning? Sorry, my brain wanders down that road. How does she not get food poisoning when she's shoving jerky and whatever snack and, in her, they're not crackers, it's like meat, and she's gnawing on some old pea. I'm like, why should Chris have her roll a disease check or something? Or is she, because she's a Barovian witch now, maybe she's not subject? I don't know. Who knows what she was eating in Sigil that made her do that, but anyway, there you have it. So Evelyn will mother her, Strix will auntie her, spoil her, Uncle Diath will probably be like, you left the kid where? I'm afraid that Paulton's going to default to deadbeat dad. I don't know. It would make sense. It would certainly make sense. It would be true to his character. I would say that much. But it's also an opportunity for growth. Maybe he has, maybe he teaches him bardic magic. Piddlewick's character. Go read Curse of Strahd if you haven't. Eventually, I'll buy the book. Right now, on my lunch break, sometimes I just like to go and read it. From work or whatever. It's a great book. Piddlewick's story is really interesting. His history is interesting. His future will be interesting from here on out. Anyway, I love Dice Camera Action. I love the actors that are involved. I love D&D. Obviously, I love all the editions of D&D. As I continue to do this, provided that I continue this, I think I will, I'll continue to mention different books. I have a huge collection of second edition books. I'll try to bring some of them out as I prepare a little bit better for this. But it was my first time doing it. Dice Camera Actions, Waffle fans, I love you. Waffle Crew, I love you. Your work is wonderful. It's a great artistic endeavor. And this is me, Matthew the Sage, I guess, signing off. Thank you for those of you who watch it later, or for those of you who streamed it now. Thank you for listening. Maybe at some point I'll figure out how to do the whole chat thing. I don't know that all the episodes will be this long. I thought I was going to be done in a half an hour, and lo and behold, it's an hour and 11 minutes later. So this is Matthew the Sage. If you want, follow me on Twitter. I'm at Sage of Sorcery 1 on Twitter, and on stream here on Twitch, I'm Sage of Sorcery. So in any case, feel free to follow me or contact me if you'd like to through Twitter or whatever. And thank you. And this is Matthew the Sage signing off.